Happy Friday to you. I have been using this framework inside of fast track coaching calls for probably the last couple of years, but only recently have I really started it. It only really started to like materialize into a three-step framework. And every time I'm working with somebody, especially like in an open office hour in fast track, and they're talking to me about a decision that they're thinking about making, or just kind of constructing or scaling up their system and their portfolio, I usually walk them through this framework. And a lot of the times it's sort of subconscious. They sort of just do this as a way for me to really understand what their goals are and what their motives are. But I've been really detailing this out as a legitimate framework for people to use, and I think people are liking it. So what I wanted to do was present this quickly here on this, and then sort of give you an update on what my current portfolio is looking like. Okay, so three steps right here. The first one's goals and outcomes. Second one's core values. The third one's strategy. So whenever I'm working with somebody, I take them through this framework. I say, okay, before we get into the weeds and start making decisions of your portfolio, what's the outcome that you're looking for, right? What is your goal? What is your outcome? That's going to drive the core values most likely, and it's also going to drive your strategies, right? And a lot of people do this. A lot of people skip the core, the goals and the outcomes and the core values, and they go straight to like the strategy. Like I want to deploy capital. I just want to get money flowing so that I can see it working. And usually when I ask people like what are their goals, they're like make money. I want to make money. I'm like, okay, yes, of course, we all want to make money. Like, why would we be investing in learning this skill set, right? Of course, we want to make money, but how are we going to make money? What is the target? What is the value? What is the materialized outcome that you're looking for? Yes, make money, of course, but the way I'm making money may be different than how you're making money, or not how, but the how much and when. What's the timeline? All of that kind of stuff. And so for me, I started to map out just very, very simple outcomes that I have. Well, for me, it's a little bit more in depth, but I try to keep this real simple. What is the outcome that I'm looking for? And so I'm looking at it from a 3 to 4 year timeline. I'm investing for the next several decades, but in the next 3 to 4 years, what do I want to be true? And for me, when I think about the next 3 to 4 years, just for reference, I'm 30 years old right now, which is crazy to say out loud. 30. But anyways, I just turned 30 this past October, so anyways, yeah, so I'm starting to think about more about, building another cash flow. When in my 20s, I wasn't necessarily investing for cash flow. I was just sort of investing for value. And I'm going to be doing the same. I'm going to be investing for value, but also for cash flow. And so as I'm looking into my 30s, I'm looking at like, okay, by the time I'm 33, 34, what do I want to be true? What outcomes do I want? And for me, I want to be generating about $5,000 per month in cash flow. When I look at my monthly expenses, we're sitting at around $3,500 to $4,500 per month in expenses. So I'm looking at that going, okay, let's go on the high end. Let's say it's even more in 3 or 4 years. Let's say my expenses are about $5,000, maybe even $6,000, depending on where my life takes me. I'm planning on getting married, most likely going to start having kids in about 3 or 4 years, I would imagine. And so I'm looking at that going, okay, what is a second source of income that I can produce? Well, I love DeFi. I feel like I've halfway decently mastered DeFi. I really and know what I'm doing in terms of my cash flow portfolio. But if I were to hit my outcomes, what would that look like? So if my DeFi portfolio can generate about $5,000 per month in cash flow, I would be very happy. I would be extremely happy with that, right? That doesn't mean that I can't continue to scale from there or do other things. But when I'm looking at my DeFi portfolio, $5,000 a month sounds really good. Also, I like to add in what's that target return percentage. I've been doing liquidity pools for the last 4 or 5 years, and my target used to be very high. My target used to be 10% per month. But then I started to learn more about my core values, which we'll talk about here in a minute. But I find 2 to 4% per month I can do rather consistently, and it be in full alignment of my core values. And so I'll talk about those here in a minute. So by reverse engineering this whole process, if I want to produce $5,000 per month in cash flow with about 2 to 4% per month in cash flow returns per month, how much capital would I need actively working for me in those vehicles that produce 2 to 4% per month? And I did that math very simply, and I needed about $125K to about $250K working inside of my DeFi portfolio to consistently produce $5,000 per month with that 2 to 4% per month cash flow target. Now, could I increase my returns and get 5, 6, 7, 8% per month? Absolutely. I could just tighten my ranges or go a little bit more not degen, but just go a little bit more. I can go outside of my blue chip pools to hunt for higher returns. I can certainly do that. But for me, I'm going to talk about my core values here in a minute. Based on my core values, I want it to be a little bit hands off. I want it to be easy to manage. I want it to be simple. And so 2 to 4% per month is where I landed. So again, I need 125K to 250K working for me to produce that. So how do I get there? If I'm looking at my portfolio right now, it's about $51,000 in total. Right? That's what my crypto and DeFi portfolio consists of. For some people, that feels like a lot. For other people, it doesn't, right? For me, it feels like a good chunk of change, right? When I look at my 20s and how much money I've made in my 20s, a $51,000 portfolio is not too shabby. But when I look at what my goal is, I need 5 times that in my DeFi portfolio to produce my target. I'm like, okay, how do I get there? How do I 5x my current portfolio? Well, I need it to grow. I need it to grow past 250K, right? So I'm not going to be able to cash flow my way to go from 50 to 250. It would take me a long time to do that, especially if I'm doing 2 to 4% per month. And so what do I need to do as an investor to get to that 250K value? Well, I need to be in vehicles, investment vehicles that actually get me there, right? And so my thesis for the longest time since I can remember is the majority of my profit is going to come from price appreciation, not necessarily cash flow. Cash flow is great to help me buy more assets that are going to appreciate, but just the cash flow itself is not going to necessarily get me there, right? I need to grow. I need the crypto market over the next 3 to 4 plus years, right? And 3 to 4 years is just my target. It could take a little longer. It could take a little shorter. Who knows? But that's just my target. For me, I need to see a 5x in growth over the next half a decade. Well, how am I going to get there? I think from price appreciation. So I want to make sure that the majority of my portfolio is sitting in assets that will appreciate in value, and then simultaneously cash flow to buy more assets that I believe are going to appreciate in value. What else do I need to do to get there? Well, I need to continue to add more investment capital into my portfolio. It's mandatory. I can't just sit here with $51,000 in my portfolio and just go, yeah, in 3 to 4 years, it's going to be 250. Maybe, but probably not, right? We're talking about Bitcoin doing a 5x. We're talking about Bitcoin going to 400, 500K in the next 3 or 4 years. Could happen, but I don't think it's going to happen that fast. So how do we get there? I need to consistently add big chunks of investment capital to my system over time. And so I use a DCA strategy, which I'll talk about more in the strategies. But I'm just trying to paint a picture of like, it's not enough to just say, I want to make money. It's where do I want, what's the ideal outcome that I want? And then how do I get there? What is the reverse engineering process to actually map out how I get there? Okay. So that's part number 1. Part number 2, and I go much faster here because I know we're running out of time here. Your time is precious. I also want to own 1 Bitcoin and 100 Tau, right? I have like 0.13 Bitcoin right now, and I have about 31 Tau. And so when I'm looking at the next 3 to 4 years, I'm like, yeah, I can absolutely get to 1 Bitcoin. That's my mission. And then also I want to keep DCAing and accumulating Tau because I'm really bullish on Tau. And so I'm looking at those two as like my core of my treasury. And I want to increase the quantity of those from a value perspective, because when I look at those two ecosystems, I think those two ecosystems are going to do really well over the next half a decade. Could be right, could be wrong, but that's my investor thesis. Okay, number 2, let's kind of move a little bit faster here. I've talked about core values a ton. So if you're like, Colin, I have no idea what you're talking about core values, raise your hand, let me know in the comments, and I can send you some materials on the core values. But when I look at the two sides of my portfolio, my treasury and my DeFi portfolio, my treasury, the core values that align with my treasury are price appreciation and asset accumulation, meaning the KPI, the key performance indicator that I'm using to track my treasury is do I have more treasury assets today than I had last week? That's it. Will I have more next week than I have today? If the answer is no, then I'm not doing a good job of continuously accumulating assets in my treasury. If the answer is yes, quantity keeps going up, great. That's it. That's the only KPI I care about in the treasury on that front. The second core value here is the price appreciation. And like I mentioned before, how do I get to 250K? I get there from price appreciation. And so I want to make sure that I'm in an investment vehicle that allows the asset to appreciate in value. And that is spot. So I want to make sure that I have my assets in a vehicle, meaning just spot, holding it spot, so that when they go up and when they double in value, the value of my portfolio also doubles in value. Okay, so two core values in treasury: price appreciation, asset accumulation. And I just add a secondary core value in here to just kind of frame how I'm operating or how I'm thinking about the treasury. And it's just a very long time horizon, meaning I'm okay riding out these big fluctuations, riding out bear markets. Because when I look at the next decade, I believe every asset that I'm holding is going to be worth more in the future than it is today. So it would be advisable for me to just sit tight and have a long-term time horizon. Okay, DeFi portfolio, main core value is cash flow, of course, right? So if I'm in a liquidity pool, cash flow is my main core value. So that's why I made it the biggest, with a bonus of price appreciation. And then sometimes I care about capital preservation. And so I made these still as core values, but I made them smaller in size because my main core value is cash flow. Two secondary core values would be price appreciation and capital preservation. So sometimes I want to preserve my capital if I'm really bearish. Sometimes I want to be in position for a bonus of a price appreciation. Hopefully that makes sense. If you have any clarification, let me know. In terms of how I operate, the secondary core value is how I think about and how I operate. What am I optimizing for? Is a nice other way I say it. Is I'm optimizing for ease of management. Meaning I want my DeFi portfolio to be easy to manage. I don't want to have to be glued to my computer every single minute of every single day. I want to be able to walk away for the weekend and then come back and say, okay, how's everything doing? How's everything going, right? So ease of management is what I'm optimizing for. I also have a very long time horizon, right? So I'll give you a perfect example. Right now, volumes are really low. And so in some of my liquidity pools, they're doing like 14 to 20% APR. That's a lot lower than what my target is, right? I'm looking for that 24 to 48% APR. At the minimum, I would love to have more than that. So when I'm looking at, okay, temporarily volumes are low and I'm not really getting my target here, that's okay. I have a very long time horizon. I don't mind riding through that. I want to be in position to experience that good cash flow that will come, because volumes will pick up at some point. I want to be in position for that. And then I also prioritize simplicity. I don't want a really, really complicated system. I want spot holdings. I want some lending and borrowing, and I want some liquidity pools. That's it. Keep it nice and simple. Okay. Last thing I'm going to touch on, and I know this video is getting kind of long, but hopefully it's valuable for you, is the strategies, right? Which is what everybody cares about. Everybody floods to the strategies, but we need to understand what the goals are and what your core values are first before we start figuring out, okay, what strategy is best for you, right? Because I mention this all the time, and if I were to bring up the UIG really quick, and I bring you over to the strategy playbook section, let's let this thing load here. If I were to go to the strategy playbook section, I was talking through this with somebody in Fast Track the other day. I'm looking at all of these. All of these are great strategies. They are great strategies, but they're not all great for everybody at the same time in all markets, right? Like, so all of these are great strategies, but some of them are better in some markets. Some of them are better with somebody's bias. Some of them are better with a certain combination of core values. And so when we're looking at the strategies, we can't just pick one and say, okay, this strategy, I'm going to do this strategy, or Joe's doing that strategy over there, so that means I'm going to do that strategy, because our core values and our goals and our time horizons and our risk tolerance, they may be completely different, right? So when we're taking a look at the strategies, I always start with, okay, well, what's the mission? What's the goal? Cool. What are your core values? What do you care about? What are you optimizing for? Okay, now let's look at that strategy. Yeah, that's a great strategy for what you're trying to do. Or that's a horrible strategy. And I've said that sometimes to folks, like that strategy just doesn't align with what you're telling me. Right? So how can we tweak it? What adjustments can we make to the strategy so that it better aligns with your core values and your outcomes? And many times have we tweaked strategies. We've taken the insurance policy strategy and tweaked it heavily to form so that it better hits the core values and the outcomes, right? So anyways, I'm talking a whole lot here, but I really hope this is landing for you, right? Get clear on the goals, clear on your core values, and the strategies will sort of materialize for you. They'll kind of just be, oh yeah, this is obvious. This is an obvious strategy. And so for me, when I'm looking at my two sides of my portfolio, remember, the majority of my profit's going to come from price appreciation. So my treasury is really important to me. So strategies could just be holding, which I'm doing, staking. If I'm going to hold something for a very long time and I can get 3, 4, 5, 6 up to 20% APR with my staking in Atom, like I'm going to stake. If I can earn 20% APR in an asset that I'm holding and just kind of sitting there collecting dust, might as well earn 20% by participating in staking and be, earning that capital, right? In my Tau, I think I'm getting like 4 to 7%, APY as that thing accumulates more Tau. Sure, I can earn 4 to 7% and not have to do anything. Yeah, I'll participate in staking in that front. So holding, staking. I'm also lending and looping as well. So not to go too deep into that, but that's something that you could possibly do, where you supply an asset that you're very bullish on, you borrow some USDC, and then you use that USDC to then buy more of that asset. And so it's a way for you it's a leverage position, but you're increasing your overall exposure to that asset in a long fashion. So lending and looping is a good strategy that I'm doing as well. And then just DCAing, that is a strategy. I just buy more of my treasury assets every single week, and my quantity keeps going up. That's the KPI I'm prioritizing and paying attention to. And that's it. Treasury is very easy. When it comes to the DeFi portfolio, this has changed over the years, right? But in my DeFi portfolio, based on my goals, based on my core values, I have been loving the layered liquidity pool strategy, and I can show you that here in the strategy playbooks. It's right here in the bonus strategy playbooks, number 3, layered liquidity pool strategy. I love it. It's been working extremely well for me because it's really good for cash flow. It has bonus price appreciation, not super good capital preservation, but I'm bullish right now. Or I could say this. I am bullish with ETH at 2,000, right? If ETH was at all-time highs, okay, maybe I want to take some off the table. I want to take some profits. With ETH being at 2,000, I'm bullish. Even if we go down to 1,400, let's say, or even below that, let's say we go down to $1,000, I'm bullish below 2,000, meaning I want to accumulate more assets. Maybe bullish is the wrong term, because a lot of you are probably in the comments going, bullish doesn't mean it's good if the price goes down. Okay, but like I want to accumulate. I want to be in position rather at 2,000 of ETH, right? When ETH is at 2,000. So for me, right now my priority is cash flow and bonus price appreciation. So being in position for when price starts to move up. Layered liquidity pool has been working beautifully for me, and then also I do some lending and borrowing inside of my DeFi portfolio as well to use my assets as collateral, borrow against them so that I can put that borrowed capital to work for me in cash flowing vehicles. So a lot longer of a video than I was anticipating, but I really hope this makes sense. You need to get clear on what your goals and outcomes are. It's not enough to just say, I want to make money. It's not enough. We got to get clear. What exactly does that look like? What is the time horizon? What are some targets? How do you get there, right? You can't just say, oh, I want $1 million portfolio and I'm starting with 10 grand and we'll just see how it goes, right? We need to have a path. How do you get there? For me, how do we get there is by adding more capital to my investment portfolio. Might be obvious, but that's number one. And then number 2 is I need it to grow. I need it to appreciate in value. So anyways, that's what I need you to get clear on in terms of goals and outcomes. Core values, really dig into the core values. Again, a nice place for you to learn about them is right here in the strategy playbooks. I also have it in the DeFi operator section here, but right here, core values, I walk through them all. I think that'll be really valuable for you to go through, figure out what you value and what you're optimizing for. And then once you got those, the strategies, again, become more apparent. That's like, wow, okay, this strategy definitely works for me because it aligns with my outcomes. Like if I do this strategy over the next 3 to 4 years, could my outcome become more real? And then does it align with how I want to live and how I want to operate? If the answer is yes, yes, yes. That's the strategy for you. So again, longer video. Hopefully you got value. Drop what you learned down in the comments so that I can kind of iterate and make this presentation a little bit better over time. But hopefully it brought you value, and we'll see you in the rest of the report. Peace.